Okay, week 3 assignment, talking about the vrittis and abhyasa and vagara. So there's 5 vrittis. This is places that our mind can be. The first is pramana, which is made up of 3. Pramana means the seeing clearly vritti. So that's where we see clearly, or like valid knowledge. And the first is pratyaksha. The second is anumanam. And the third is agama. So pratyaksha is through direct experience. So if you have experience of something, for example, if you've experienced a fire and the heat of a fire by maybe being burned by the fire, then the next time you see a fire, you will know that the fire is hot. That's valid knowledge from a direct experience. The second, anumanam, is inference, like a valid, correct inference. For example, if you know that fire and smoke go hand in hand, and then you see smoke, you don't necessarily have to see the fire to know that it's there. So this is a correct inference from your own experience in the past. The third, which is agama, is a valid teaching. So there might be something that you have no experience of, but someone else does, and from their valid experience they can give you an authentic teaching of that event. For example, what it's like to travel in space, or probably more relevant, ekagra or nirodha, the states of consciousness. So we may not have experienced those yet, but someone will be able to teach us academically about it, and we'll have some knowledge which is valid, but from an authentic source. So that's the first vritti. The second vritti is viprayaya. This is object related, and it's where we superimpose something false onto an object. The example from the lecture is the rope and the snake. So if you walk in a dark alley and you see a coil of rope, perhaps your mind thinks it's a snake and superimposes the attributes of a snake onto that rope. You will see then the rope as a snake, but that's not true. It's not valid knowledge. Also in this, we talk about superimposing our expectations onto other people, and then being disappointed when those expectations are not met, but that this is our problem and not the other person's, because it's us superimposing our expectations and ideals onto someone else. And often we'll say, oh, ideally you should have done this. Well, yes, ideally, but we're not ideal people. We are imperfect beings, and so it's totally understandable for someone to behave in a manner that is non-ideal if they are imperfect, which we all are. So that's the idea of superimposing something false onto an object. The other example that Manoj gave was of the strawberry juice, which was not strawberry juice. It was just water with some red food colour, some strawberry scent, an organic label saying strawberry juice. Then people would believe it is without looking into it deeper, but it's not actually strawberry juice. So that's viprayaya. And that's a place the mind can go, is superimposing its own ideals, or superimposing things onto objects. Vikalpa is the third vritti. Vikalpa is like a fantasy in that it is nothing real. You don't need a tangible object. The one that's most relevant for me for this is the future. Planning future conversations, planning future events, thinking about work in the future, just anything that is not real. It hasn't happened yet. There's no object there, but the mind can go and spend a lot of time there. And this is not ideal, especially when it takes us away from our senses, our direct sensory experience, and also we can spend a lot of worry and give ourselves a lot of stress over something that's not actually real. It can also be something, I think, from the past that, like, imagine if you think of a scenario from the past and then you start imagining a different scenario of how you would have done it differently. That's still not an object. It's nothing real. It's nothing that actually happened, and it's your own fantasy. The next one is nidra, which is sleep. Now, I want to flag that sleep is all good. You can have sleep, it's fine, but it can get in the way of your practice. So during your sitting practice, if you're feeling sleepy and you're getting heavy and you're almost falling asleep, that's taking you away from your practice at the time. So it can become an obstacle that I feel sleepy, I'm going to sleep and not going to do what I said I would do. The fifth one is smriti, SMTRI, I'm not sure of my pronunciation, but in this, it's incidental memory. So it might be memory of an incident from the past, perhaps a conversation, perhaps an argument with someone, and it's different to your operational memory. So operational memory, like how do I drive a car? How do I use my phone? How do I write the alphabet? These are all useful things that we must know in order to, do well in life and get by day to day. But they sit and they're stored in the buddhi, in the discerning intellect. The incidental memory, it's stored in the manas, in the mind. And often this is a place that the mind will go. So the vritti is the disturbance or fluctuation in the chitta, which is the consciousness. So it can, the memories of the past can come up. And I've observed this week that my mind will most often go into vikalpa. Sometimes goes into smriti, something will arise, and then from that I end up back in vikalpa, imagining a new scenario of how it could play out differently, or it might make me think about talking to that person again in future and what would I say. So I bounce between the past and the future quite a lot, often missing the moment. But the awareness of just bringing my mind back is helping, and we'll talk about that next. So the way that you can prevent the vrittis from making you either restless, like in Shikapa, no, Shipta, sorry, in Shipta, or dull, like in Muda, for those first two grounds of consciousness. The way that you can prevent that from occurring is through abhyasa and virgaya. I will have to check my pronunciation when I listen to the lectures on these. But abhyasa is like a 4-box checklist. The first one is that your practice, i.e. your yoga practice, is long-term, continuous with effort, it's done with respect. So not just respect to other people and yourself, but also you can respect your tools of yoga, your yoga mat, the block. You can even just touch them and ask for permission before you use them in class, which is quite a nice idea. And the last one is it's done in service, and the service is really to serve the bigger goal of connecting with Purusha, the spirit. It can also be done in service to others, in that if I've learned a lot and had great experiences through yoga, then perhaps I can share that with others, which is doing service to them. And that is probably the best intention, or probably the best place to start with the intention to become a yoga teacher, is not to be the one out the front doing the headstand and everyone saying, oh wow, that's amazing, but making your students the star, talking them through it with clear instructions and doing it in order that they get something good from it, not that you necessarily do, even though you will receive a lot from it indirectly. So that's abhyasa. Now vairagya is this is all about checking in with your mind regularly. Now there's 4 elements of this as well. The first is checking where is my mind. The second is if you can do that every 30 minutes for a few weeks, and just make a note mentally of where your mind is actually going, then you'll ascertain where your mind goes a lot of the time. And through this, if we realize that it's about controlling our own inner processes rather than controlling the processes of others, which is their business, and it doesn't serve us really to control others, but just to correct internally our processes, then we move into the 4th one, which is mastery over our our inner processes, especially in the mind and the consciousness. So we can, when we have mastery, we can make a choice. We can be aware of where our mind is, and then we can choose where we want to get stuck or to be spending time, perhaps on a wholesome documentary, a wholesome podcast, conversations with loved ones, rather than this toing and froing in the mind, forward and back, or unwholesome activities that don't serve the greater goal, which is to connect and abide in our true spirit, Purusha. It's like the Ekagra and Nirodha grounds of consciousness. Now, the Sanskrit terms for Vairagya I find difficult. Yatama is where is my mind. Vyatrikya is ascertaining. Ekandriya is the third one, which is controlling your inner process. And then Vaishakara. Just check the notes. Vaishakara is the fourth one, which is mastery over your inner process. Okay. I need to work on the pronunciation, but otherwise that's the first, part 2 and 3 of this week's assignment. Thanks.